What's going on, gang? Coach Joe here to talk to you a little bit about Performa Sleep. Guys, Performa Sleep has worked with industry experts to develop the ideal mattress for athletes and active people looking to improve their performance through better sleep. Guys, Performa Sleep is proud to say that every single Performa Sleep mattress is made in the USA and ships quickly from their warehouse to your door, and hopefully gets in your bedroom pretty quick. Guys, I sleep on a Performa Sleep mattress. I absolutely love it. It's the only mattress on the market with copper cool technology, and I can say right now, as a guy who sleeps hot, who sleeps with the sweats, I don't anymore in my Performa Sleep mattress. Check it out. Folks like myself, like Dr. Danny, Lauren Fisher, Emily Bridgers, Scott Panchek are on the Performa Sleep mattress, and I have nothing but great things to say about it. So head over to performasleep.com and click their big red Buy Now button and enjoy.
What's up, guys? Doc and Jock podcast. It's me, Doc Danny. The other guy is Coach Joe, and the other guy is Johnny Barbell, Johnny Bouchard. He's our podcast producer, actually, and we've been wanting to have him on for a long time because Johnny is actually a phenomenal CrossFit coach, and we wanted to talk CrossFit a little bit and how to be better as a coach, how to deal with some of the individual kind of unique problems that a CrossFit coach runs into. So we finally matched up a time to get him on. So first of all, Johnny, thanks so much for jumping on us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry.
No,
is that okay? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Don't do it again, man.
Don't do it. You know what?
Kidding.
I was going to say we won't go there. We were going to talk domestic violence in a second, but
no, that's not. We'll
avoid that conversation. But no, it's cool, man. Johnny, you've been helping us out for a while, and fired up to have a conversation with you. We want to introduce you to
It's weird. I'll just say this. It's weird hearing that intro from this side. Like,
right.
I'm usually sitting there like, all right, like, are there pops? Is the guest going to come in early? Are they going to say something dumb? Like, what's going on? You know, like, just what's going on? So it's totally weird to be like, oh, shit, like, I better not fuck up right now because then I'm going to have to edit myself out of the show. So
Well, you just did by cursing. Supposedly we're very immature. I know. But, we're working that out.
Yeah, that's okay, man. My son. I was talking to him about we had this like super sweet moment tonight, right? He's right before he goes to bed. I'm talking to him about his day. You know, hey, what was your favorite part of your day? I always ask him that. You know, what was your favorite part of your day? He starts telling me a story about favorite part of his day, and then rips the loudest fart I've ever heard him fart, and we both like teared up. We were laughing so hard. So maybe I am immature because me and a 4-year-old just like laughed so hard we cried whenever he let one rip. It was a grown man fart, and he's 4, so it was pretty proud daddy moment.
Who I don't know if a person who doesn't find flatulence funny is someone I want to be friends with or have a podcast with. You know, it's just the way it is. It's just that's a funny thing to talk about. But we're having issues in my house because I'm trying to teach Mason the difference between garage words and regular words, and even at 5 years old, we're trying to let him know that it's okay to cuss in the garage when you're training, but it's not okay to cuss in the kitchen while you're eating. So that's kind of what we're talking about, Johnny. All things for you to look forward to, man, because you, my friend, do not have kiddos, do you?
No kiddos over here. No, we're kid free. We got a dog. We're thinking about adopting a second one here in the near future, but that's it right now. It's easy living over here. I have all the things you guys complain about and like have issues and all that stuff. I'm like, I have no clue what you guys are talking about, and it's awesome for right now.
Yeah, that's okay. No big deal, man. I mean, dogs. That's like the step below kids. You know, it's they require a commitment. You have to, you can't just leave a bowl of food out for them like a cat.
Yeah,
you could, but they would just eat it at once, and
then they would die. You'd be back 17 hours later, and they'd be dead.
Yeah, they'd be dead. But no, it's all good. But yeah, we've been looking forward to having you on for a while because first of all, you got an interesting background, and Johnny and I have an interesting backstory. Actually, I guess Johnny, Joe, and I have an interesting backstory because this is how small of a world this is. So So Johnny, Joe, and I all knew each other about, what was that, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
roughly?
over 10 years ago at this point, I think.
About
yeah.
10 years ago. So the story goes as this. So I was in physical therapy school in San Antonio. Joe's wife went to PT school with me, and a girl that Johnny used to date was going to school with me as well. So he moved down there with her, and then, they ended up breaking up, and he moved back to Ohio, and I never thought I'd see him again. And I walk into a gym in Decatur, Georgia, which is right down the road from where our new office is, and the owner, who I know pretty well, he goes, "Hey, Johnny's here. He says he knows you." And so I'm thinking he's probably somebody that's come to a mobility WOD course that I've taught or something like that. Walk around the corner, and Johnny's writing on the blackboard. He's like the workout of the day, and I had to do like a double take. So I was like, "Holy shit, Johnny, what are you doing here, man?" And then come to find out his wife got transferred there, and he moved out from L.A. to, of all places, Decatur, Georgia, and now he produces our podcast. So that's the story. It's a crazy story.
It is a crazy story, man. I think the funniest thing for me was, as I was making my journey through coaching, like getting into mobility WOD and like watching the videos every day and incorporating that in with our clients and that sort of stuff, seeing you start dropping videos on there. And it took me like 2 or 3 Danny videos before I was like, dude, I know that fucking guy from somewhere. Like, where is it? And it was like deep in the memory bank, but I finally dug it up. I'm like, San Antonio. I remember
That's it.
He and Pat getting wasted at Mad Dogs on the 410. Like that was where I was working at the time, and you guys weren't studying at all. You were in a bar.
No, we would show up. The best part of where you worked was we would show up, and if we ordered 1 beer, 2 would come out. This is how awesome it was. And that place, if I'm not mistaken, that place closed down. And this may be one of the reasons why.
Probably why.
Because when Johnny was working, I was like, oh yeah, we gotta go to Mad Dogs. Johnny's working. It's like 2-for-1 special every night. So it was cool, man. It's been fun because and I come to find out, not only are you you good at what you do for us, but I keep hearing from people that go to CrossFit Decatur, which is where Johnny is the head coach, that you're the best CrossFit coach they've ever had. And that's saying a lot because I know quite a few of the coaches that they've had there who are really good. And this is probably like a half dozen people that I've seen, as patients that they have the same thing to say. And a lot of it is about, just the depth of knowledge in terms of being able to work with a large group, and it's a bit of an older population and being able to scale things correctly and all that stuff. So that's kind of what we want to talk about tonight is first of all, how do you work with a group like that? Because I think that's the challenge for most people. So why don't we start with this? Why don't you give everybody a little background on yourself, like what you did in the past, how you got into CrossFit, and like what you've done in CrossFit in particular.
So I guess you got to go kind of far back. So I played a lot of high school sports. Danny and I were talking about this earlier. I went to a super small high school where you could play any sport that you wanted. Was not allowed to play football. That was the only thing. Parents were no-go on football. You're going to get concussion. They were on that tip early. So I was into sports, playing sports. I was a skinny kid in high school, like $120, soaking wet, 6 feet tall. So I got into training at an early age, like just trying to bulk up, add more weight. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, like open all the time, trying to figure it out. How am I going to get bigger so I can be better at sports? That ended up not working out, but it took me into the route of pursuing a military career. The sports did, being kind of a punk kid, that took me into that world. I spent some time in the Air Force as a special operations dude, and then got through with that and basically turned into a piece of crap. Like, that's what I always like to say. Like, I got out of the Air Force and was like, I'm not working out anymore. I worked out for 40 years straight, pretty much every single day, as hard as I possibly could. I want to go smoke cigarettes, drink whiskey, do all of the drugs that have ever been made, and then figure out college later. And so that's what I did for like probably a solid year and a half. Like, I would go to class maybe 1 day a week and then just get ripped up with 19, 20-year-old kids. And at this point, I'm like 22. Like, I'm older than these kids. So that had its fun, it had its place, and I just kind of ended up dude, I need a change. I moved out to Los Angeles. A friend hooked me up with a job touring for a record label on the Warped Tour during the summer, which was a pretty cool gig. And after that ended up bringing me into another job working for a record label out there, where I eventually met my wife. And we were living together, and every single day she would wake up early and go to the gym. And I just could not stand the thought of going to do curls and running on a treadmill at LA Fitness. One of our friends introduced us to CrossFit, and that was kind of it. Got into CrossFit, and probably 6 months into it, decided that our coach sucked and that I should go get my L1 and start figuring out, like, hey, we're going to leave CrossFit. We're going to have our own little gym in our house. We're going to do this on our own. And now it's been 5 years, and I'm coaching every day, have been for 5 years straight pretty much. So that's kind of my story.
Talk to us about the little gym, the home stuff, because I think it's something that I've done, right? I was training in a CrossFit gym and coached in one, did a barbell club in a gym, and then, I popped out, I got my wife pregnant for a third time, and she popped out the third kid, and I just transplanted everybody, a couple of the folks, into the garage from the club. So what were the initial days like of coaching people at home?
So we actually never did that. So it's a pretty interesting story. Yeah, that was the plan. Was I had some buddies, and we were all coaching together at this affiliate that was inside of a Globo gym, like this huge, massive, just basically LA Fitness with a different name, that had this dead sports performance side that nobody was really using. So we just kind of used the space to coach some CrossFit out of. And that was going okay. And then the gym got sold and changed ownership, and the dudes were like, no CrossFit, So the plan was like, hey, we're going to leave. We're going to go and do this somewhere. And a buddy of mine who is super wealthy was like, dude, why don't you open your own CrossFit space? Like, why are you going to go do this at your house, or why are you going to go do this like in a park somewhere? Why don't we get you a gym? And that's actually what ended up happening instead. So I opened this gym in LA called Angelino CrossFit, which was basically in my head. Like, it was less than a mile from our house. It was in a 1,000 square foot place. And we ended up having like damn near 400 members by the time that we left and moved to Georgia, which was fucking crazy to have like that many classes with that much volume of people and a 1,000 square foot box going every single day. Yeah, it was wild, man. It was really cool. That ultimately for me was kind of like coaching boot camp, like going from, having maybe 15, 20 clients before that, and having like 400 people that you're looking after, having coaches working for you and trying to set like a good example for them. And at the same time, just trying to understand what is a good example in this setting, like what should we be doing? What should we be talking about? How are we going to get people better? Balancing that like desire of being a CrossFit athlete versus fitness, like what is your real goal of being here? Like, should you even be a CrossFit Games athlete or thinking along those lines, or are you just here, to lose 30 pounds so you can fit into those jeans that you wore 5 years ago? And that, that truly, that kind of live or die mentality, like, hey, this is your gym, you better not fuck it up, and it's somebody else's money, definitely really was like a fucking killer indoctrination, we'll call it, into coaching. So.
Yeah, I bet. Well, so, I mean, when you had that going towards the end, how many hours a day were you coaching? Because I think this is where a lot of coaches get burned out. Is it early mornings and then it's that split schedule?
At that point, I was probably coaching 14 to 16 hours a day because the gym, even though it had that many people, wasn't making a lot of money. A lot of money was getting kicked out for paying the investors back, all that stuff. So I was coaching private one-on-ones in all the down hours at the gym, like just to take it on to keep my wife and I, somewhat sustain while we were doing it. So that was maybe like one of the brutalest year and a half periods of my entire life, was being at the gym. I had a dude named Mitch that I would coach a lot of days at 4:30 a.m. before the first class, and then just rolling straight through until 7, 8 o'clock at night. It was awesome. It was tiring.
So you talk about private coaching and the one-on-one stuff and the group elements. Incorporating CrossFit style work and the private coaching on the same time, there's a big difference there. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between the two and making that transition in a day from working with someone individually, and then all of a sudden you have to incorporate and motivate a group, right?
Yeah, man. I actually think that anybody who has to go into the group setting as a coach should probably do a lot of one-on-ones. And you can use CrossFit as a template, but use that to learn and kind of work some of your thoughts and ideas out ahead of time, because it really teaches you it's just you, while somebody's working out, you have to look at their movement the whole time. Like, you're a shitty coach if you start getting on your phone and texting while somebody's squatting. And if they have a single bad rep and you're not going to stop them and let them know, like, hey, man, your knees are pulling in at the bottom of that squat. We got to fix that. We're going to do X, Y, and Z instead. And you're a shitty coach. Like, it is just you and a person, and it can get real weird, real fast. And you just got to kind of be on top of it. It teaches you also how to figure people out as well, you know? Like, how can this person that I have nothing in common with, how am I going to spend an hour of my life with them, relating to them, and then getting them to care about what we're doing today? I think that's one of the hardest things, is just getting somebody to care about the squat the same way that I care about the squat, you know, because they ultimately want to come in there. They want to give you however much money it is, and then in 6 to 8 weeks, you know, have their goal met and then not see you anymore. Like, I feel like a lot of people just want to check that off their box. Like, hey, I lost weight, I'm out the door. You know, I don't have to work out anymore. So that, and then going into the group setting is just making a bigger, more, I guess, universal version of what you're doing in a one-on-one training session, right? Like, hey, maybe this cue works really good for this one guy, and now I see 5 people that have that same problem. So how am I going to use this cue in a way that can grab all 5 of them at the same time? I don't know. It never felt like it was all that hard of a transition, but it's definitely a weird thing to do. Going from like the smallness and personalness of doing a one-on-one into a group session where you have 20 people and you're trying to manage somebody along with getting people to move better and having them not kill each other at the same time.
Well, I think the one-on-one stuff is really interesting because I've heard that from actually a number of coaches where maybe their background was in personal training or some sort of one-on-one, whether it be sport coaching or whatever. And even myself, like with I was a personal trainer when I was in college for 2 years, the last 2 years that I was in school, and I also did some student team strength coach stuff as well. And I felt like personal training, and I was personal training at a golf retirement community called Reynolds Plantation, which is Lake Oconee. So it's nothing but a bunch of like very wealthy retired people, right? So like the average age of the people I was training was probably 65, and that helped me dramatically with, you know, college age athletes, and I think a lot of it comes down to being able to read people's body language better, you know, being able to, you know, kind of see where they're at and how they're feeling, being able to talk to somebody for an hour about nothing is kind of hard. Right. So with if you can do that, I mean, damn, a big group of 20 people, it's much easier. So, you know, for you, you know, I don't think a lot of people go into that. I don't even know if there's an avenue for them to do that besides one-on-one coaching. If they don't have one-on-ones available at their gym, what do you think is a way where they can get better at that kind of interpersonal side of coaching?
I would say I still do this now with a lot of our clients at CrossFit Educators, just grabbing people out of the group session that you can just tell aren't getting it and being like, dude, you have 30 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is after class, or you grab them right at the end of class and say, dude, we're going to go over here and talk about this right now. And because so much of coaching in general is just being a good communicator, you know, like there's skills that exist out in the outside world outside of the gym, you know, like if you can explain something in a way that each individual person can grasp, then you're doing pretty good, you know, like then you grab the guy for 10 minutes after and, you know, that works and you got his problem fixed or whatever it is. But I think if you see somebody or if I see somebody in one of my classes that just isn't getting it and they really want to get it, then I'm going to take them outside of class and we're going to work on it until I figure out what their thing is, what the thing is that makes them, you know, tick, I guess is the right way of saying that. Yeah. Like, what's going to connect the dots so they move better, get whatever it is. So,
yeah, I mean, I can think back to my experience in CrossFit group classes, and I always like the coaches who could find a way, even in a group setting, no matter how many people were there, that almost made it feel like a personal training session where you're walking away, getting your name heard, you're walking away with something you can work on and something you've done good, floating around the room, and just being able to talk to folks in that regard is pretty important. So
I was going to say, Joe, one thing that I stole from you, when we just started working together, I went back and tried to listen to most of the old episodes, just to get a frame of reference on anything. And you had mentioned, I forget what episode it is, but you said, like, every person should be talked to every single day. Every person should leave with something for them every day. And I think that's something that I had always thought about, but it was like a gut check reminder. Like, dude, you know, even my wife, I've had my wife in my class every day for 5 years. Like, some days I don't want to say like, hey, you know what, your hands are in the wrong position on the jerk when you're finishing, or whatever it is, you know, like, but everybody's got to hear something every single day, or else they're going to leave and they're going to be like, you know what, that fucking coach sucks. He hates me.
No, well, it's and I'll say this, and I'll tell you one of the reasons that I started doing that was because I'll go into certain gyms, and once I'm there for a while, to like, not to be a turd about this or to be uppity here, but like I'll move decently with some stuff, and like I have we'll get to talking to people, and I have a perspective on Olympic lifting, and it's known in the gym, and then a lot of times the coaches won't coach me on certain movements because one, I don't come across as, it's not that I don't come across as, maybe I do, maybe I come across as unapproachable, I guess, I'm not sure, but for some reason they'll back off. But my thing too is, as a coach, and you can speak on this a little bit, no matter who's in the room, you have to command it, and you have to establish authority to some degree, and you have to some degree, for better or worse, I always think that good coaches find a way to, and I don't want to say impose their will in the class, or just reach out to everybody somehow with something. I just think it's so important, and I think it's also really important to find your way of doing that. You know, some people are the comedian, some people are the authoritarian, and as soon as you start to try to be something you're not, that's also an issue. So to again impose your will and to do it with genuality, is that even a word? Or to do it genuinely, I think idea. Is really yeah. I think that's really important.
I don't know. Yeah. I'll Google it.
Yeah, Google that.
No, I do. I think what you're saying too can relate to so many different things, like not just coaching, but there's a great book. It's one of my favorite books, and in fact, I think I put this on Instagram maybe a week ago. And the book is called The Charisma Myth. And I got this book from a mentor of mine when I was in the Army, right before I went to my brigade. And you know, he told me, "Hey, you know, talking in front of 50 people is stressful and it's challenging. Now, imagine briefing a general, which you're going to have to do, and you're going to be a junior captain that doesn't know anything around a bunch of, you know, lieutenant colonels and full bird colonels, because I'm the only PT for this brigade. They're going, what the hell is going on with injuries and where we're at with human performance and injury prevention stuff. So the book is interesting because the book talks about different types of leaders, right? So you have these charismatic leaders that a lot of people, you know, they have their own style, but yet it's still effective. Like somebody like Bill Gates versus somebody like Teddy Roosevelt are totally different. And if Bill Gates tried to be a tough guy like Teddy Roosevelt, it would come off as silly. And if Teddy Roosevelt tried to be super analytical and like, you know, numbers based like Bill Gates, it would be very odd as well. So this book is all about figuring out what your style is, and then really a lot of it comes down to understanding what that is, and in your own mind setting the stage for being what they call the big gorilla in the room, right? I mean, it's my favorite public speaking book I've ever read, and I probably read it once a year. But for coaching, you can even your mindset of coaching, like you probably notice this too. If you're at a group and you're kind of like, man, I'm tired. I got, you know, poor sleep last night. Like, I'm not into this because this is the fourth time I've just yelled at everybody about the same workout. Like, people can tell that, right? And then even in your own mind, if you think, man, this is the first time everybody's going to hear this, I have to talk like it's the first time I said it, it makes a huge difference, right? So, I mean, a lot of this is just purely mindset, and you can apply that to whatever it is your job is. It doesn't have to be coaching, but in the CrossFit gym, it makes a huge difference.
I think so much of it is it's almost like acting in a way, right?
Right.
Like, you have to have a persona when you go in there every single day and you're with that group of people every single day, and it has to connect and land the same way that, like, if Tom Cruise is in a role, that character has to connect and land with the audience. Like, and the only thing that's different, and it's more like theater acting, I guess, is that you're almost playing with your audience. Like, you have to be able to feel the vibe of the room that day and that moment, and know, like, hey, you know what, maybe right now is when I do have to kind of kick into my tough guy asshole mode and start actually screaming, because nobody's listening right now and doing what they need to be doing, you know? And for me, I don't really go with that role. That's not kind of my style with coaching. But when I do pull out something like that, it shocks people, right? And that's that leadership that you have to get and that respect that you have to pull out of everybody is to understand what you need to be doing as the leader of that group and as a communicator in that moment to keep your group moving in the direction that they need to be. I think that's so much of like understanding what the goal is for the day too. I know coaches, I had coaches that worked for me before that if you ask them like, hey, what do you want each person to get out of your class today? They wouldn't have an answer other than I want nobody to get hurt and I want everybody to have a good time on the workout, you know? And like, come on, dude, like you're here to help people get better. What are they going to get better at by taking your class? If I go to, University of Georgia to audit a class or something, like I expect to get better every single day that I'm in there. So the same thing applies.
So you talk about connecting and landing and styles of coaching and gearing up with that and connecting with it. Talk about, you mentioned the authoritarian coach or the guy who's going to push people, or I guess not push people around, but kind of force them into their role or force them into exercises or, be that authoritarian, that head coach, that I guess that Teddy Roosevelt personality. What are some of the other personalities that we've seen effective at the front of the CrossFit gym? You've been around a lot of coaches and maybe even define your own, Johnny.
There's the funny, entertaining guy. That one is one that's real popular. I'll call it the uber educational guy. Like we'll reference some San Francisco CrossFit people since you guys are both familiar with him. You have the Kelly Starrett kind of approach to it, right? Kelly's funny. He's making jokes. He makes you give a shit about tying bands on parts of your body and then doing it the right way. And then you have guys like Carl Paoli he's also, he's funny, he's looser, but he really connects with people on like a very informational, like, hey, I'm the dude next door kind of way, kind of guy. I think that there's something to be said for like a very quiet, straightforward guy. I'll never forget this. I was dropping in at a CrossFit gym in Lahaina, Hawaii, and there's this dude in there. Like he just seemed like the quietest guy in the entire world, but one of the best coaches that I've ever been around. He wasn't loud. He wasn't funny. He didn't have like the rah-rah mentality. He just went up there and it was no bullshit, straightforward, like very silent professional type of guy. And I've always thought that was a really cool way of being too, as long as you didn't lose the group, like you just go up there. You didn't have to be something that he wasn't. He had the knowledge and the skill and the expertise to be able to coach a great class and lead people and get people to do what they needed to do that day. So I don't know. There's got to be a million. I think it's so much more about knowing who you are, right? I used to work in music, and a big thing with singers and bands is like they have to understand their own voice. If they're trying to imitate Bruce Springsteen all the time, then they're going to be that dude that imitates Bruce Springsteen for their whole career. They're never going to be original. And I think that's so much like if you're coaching, find out what your voice is, find out what you care about, find out what your thing is, and it will be sincere and genuine. If you walk in there every day and you're trying to be Danny or Joe, you're going to come off as a Danny or Joe imitator. And it's going to be, people are eventually going to find out who Danny and Joe are and just go straight to the source,
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And, I think that you have to have some sort of presence because it's sad to say this, but I've been to a number of gyms where coaches are they're really not, they kind of just walk you through what the workout is. And then that's pretty much it. And then while
I always say those are dudes who got their level 1 thinking it would be awesome to be a coach. And when they found out what being a coach was, like, then they get kind of bummed on it. They're like, dude, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. Like, let's just talk about what this workout is. I'm going to hit the clock. We'll turn up the music really loud. And then, I'll yell every 3 minutes to make sure that people are excited, And
that's right.
And to me, that just says like, hey man, maybe this isn't something this is something fun. It's something cool. Like you thought it was awesome, but this isn't something that you should be doing on a daily basis. Because there's people that actually really give a shit about doing this as their career, and they want to be in here getting people better every single day. And I think that's a big issue, I think, sometimes in CrossFit gyms. And there's a whole lot of other things you could talk about with it, but I could say from an owner's perspective, a lot of times you just don't have the money to hire, high-end coaches to hire some, and they're hard to come by at that too. Yeah. So you hire just, hey, I'll take somebody with a level 1 and I'll turn them into being a good coach, and they're just not a good coach, like they're just not cut from that jib. They have something else to do in life, but it is definitely not be a coach. So
you've worked with a couple coaches, a couple different gyms, and you kind of spoke on training guys up. Can you walk us through maybe how you've developed a coach? I mean, in that regard, where you got a guy who maybe...
Yeah, man, I actually have, I'll give a little shout out. I have a homie in LA named CJ Hammond. He's still coaching. I think he's at CrossFit Studio City in Studio City, Los Angeles. I hired this kid because he came in and he gave me the answer that I loved as an owner hiring somebody. I said, why should I give you this job? And he's like, dude, I played college football. I was an exercise science major. I've never trained anybody. I don't know anything. But I want to learn. I will mop the floors in this building every single day if you'll just teach me. Like, I don't, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to do anything else. Like, I just want to be in here. I want to be working. And he was hungry, man. Like, so it started as a shadowing process. And I always have people just sit down and write what their thoughts are first, right? Like, just, you're going to sit in the corner. You're not going to say anything. You're not going to do anything. Just observe, because that's a huge part of being a coach, is the ability to observe. Like, take in what's going on. What do you think I'm doing when I'm saying this? Why do you think I'm doing that? And then at the same time, kind of concurrently having them learning what they need to be learning. For him, it's, the L1 handbook. And I always add some extra stuff. I think Becoming a Supple Leopard is a book that people should read when they're starting their coaching career, and not after they've been doing it for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Like, it's something you need to take in at the beginning, because there's so much great stuff about movement in there. Anyway, so they're learning things, and eventually I like to just kind of play games in between classes with guys. Like, hey, teach me to squat and come up with a creative way, or teach me to squat, but here's my problem. Teach me to squat, but you can't say the word fuck for the next 5 minutes. Teach me to squat, but you can't do this. Teach me to squat, but I'm deaf, And if, I don't know if either of you guys have ever done the CrossFit L2, but it's so much of what goes on at the L2, which is just different scenarios you're taking people through to try and get them to think creatively and think on their feet. And then I'll start I started incorporating them into the group training setting where, we're getting him managing people, and after class, I'm giving him notes every day, And this kid, it was hard. It was the most amount of work I think I've ever had to do on the managing a person level of my entire life. Like, we would talk about, hey, dude, your classes have to be ran in an hour. You need to wear a fucking watch. Like, you can't spend 30 minutes stretching before class and flirting with chicks. And I'd walk back in the gym an hour and 5 minutes later, and he wouldn't even have the workout started, And from a business perspective, you're like, fuck, dude, I got more people coming in here. You're killing my time. But yeah, man, it's a process. And I think a lot of it too is figuring out what's going to make each person better. What's their own limitations, and attacking those individually.
Well, what other books, you referenced Supple Leopard, what other books or references would you recommend a CrossFit coach, whether it be new or seasoned, start taking a look at, try to learn from?
I think Carl's book, Freestyle Connection, is fantastic. That starts giving you some guidelines on how to see things a little bit differently from, hey, there's the five essential unchanging elements of any movement that CrossFit teaches, into kind of thinking more creatively as a coach and seeing bigger picture kind of movement things. And I think thought that was a great book. Mark Ripeto's, both his books, Starting Strength and then Programming for Strength, are great, good books. Louis Simmons' stuff I love. Brian McKenzie's stuff is awesome. All that stuff. I mean, you could pretty much just go start Google searching and get in a rabbit hole. And that's how it kind of went for me. I started trying to think what this is a funny story. So I decided that after I got my L1 that an L1 wasn't good enough. So I needed to go get my CSCS, because CrossFit coaches were invalid unless they had both. So I read the whole essentials of blah, blah, blah. I took that test, passed it, and learned fucking nothing from it. And while I was taking the test, some dude was in there and he was like, man, you should check out this Supple Leopard book. I think you'll dig it. And that just took me on a year-long rabbit hole of watching mobility WOD videos, checking out the books. I've read fucking physical therapy books that I shouldn't be reading before because I really don't know what they're talking about at all in there because I didn't take the class that you're supposed to, blah, blah, blah. But just listening to what people are saying and finding out coaches that you like and then who the books that they read were. You know, you can kind of go deep into that on forever. So
you also bring up CSCS and level 1s and becoming certified and all this different stuff. You know, you get into this coaching rabbit hole too, where you start chasing the certifications, right? And it's something that all young coaches do, right? You get this laundry list of things, and you all of a sudden think that having all these things make you the better coach, but you end up forgetting a lot of that stuff. But if you were going to recommend a couple of these courses for young coaches to attend to kind of beef up their level 1, to kind of make them more of an authority in front of that room, toss a few out there.
I'd say you need to go take the mobility course, the MWOD course with Danny Matei in Atlanta. I think that's a really important course. That's
great. Thanks
for Danny. Yeah. I think again, Carl's Freestyle Connection. It's basically the book and a seminar. So if you're lazy and you don't want to read, go pay the $500 or whatever he's charging these days and go take that seminar. Shit, man. I think the USAW, the entry-level coaching, the sports performance coach or whatever the hell that one's called, that's a good one. The FMS one is actually pretty good. Like, if you're looking for a way, like, if you don't have a system of screening people, I think that's a definite, like, it's not something you're ever going to use practically. You're never going to run the test that you learn from an FMS, but it will teach you how to see movement better, which I think is so much of understanding a general population gym is like, hey, when somebody walks in the door, like, what's going to hold them back instantly? Is it going to be that they're overweight, or is it going to be that they have bad knees and you saw that before they ever attempted their first air squat? So you can start preparing for that in your head. It's another good course. God. I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's all I got off the top of my head.
There you go.
I think a lot of the CrossFit ones are good. I mean, they're always good. They're always structured well. They're always ran well. I also think that I've spent enough money with those at this point. Like, I'm looking for new, interesting ones to go to. So we'll see. We'll see what ones I find this year.
Well, the other thing that you kind of bring up is some of these courses. It's just seeing some of these coaches teach is pretty beneficial as well. And honestly, you could say anybody can read, Becoming a Supple Leopard, and hopefully, I mean, you may need to read it more than once, but you can get most of the concepts out of that, and be pretty dang proficient with the material. But to see somebody like Kelly present it is completely different, right? Yes. And for me, I've gone to a lot of courses, and I've worked with a lot of coaches and practitioners, and every time that I see somebody that's really good, I kind of take something away from them, and I apply it to what I do. Not to say that when I present, it's just like how Kelly does, but I mean, I've been around Carl when he teaches, and I think he may be one of the better people I've ever been around that breaks down topics into a very simple, complex topics into a very simple way for people to understand. And it's a unique skill, I think, that he has that if you've never seen him do it, it's definitely worth seeing, because if you're a coach and you can even take a sliver of what he does and apply that to what you do, you'll be a better coach for that, and that's really, in my opinion, one of the more important things about going to some of these courses is really, you're getting exposure not just to material, but also to some hopefully very knowledgeable coaches that, you can take some little pearls of wisdom away from and apply that. So, look, for you going forward, it sounds like the CrossFit stuff you've done a lot of. I think there's a lot of people like this as well. You've kind of started dabbling into these other things. But looking at like FMS and all that, like how has that changed the way that you'll talk to somebody that maybe is having a problem? Do you try to use any of the simple corrective drills that they talk about, or do you have them go through any of the little breakout screenings? Have you applied that much at all into the actual gym?
No, sorry. No, I actually don't use FMS all that much anymore at all. I actually use a lot of what you guys teach in the Mobility WOD seminar. I think that because what you're doing in a CrossFit gym, you're doing movement screens all the time.
Right.
And like I've seen enough now and know enough now where when somebody comes in complaining about pain in their knee, like I can say, dude, I saw you squat yesterday from across the room. I could tell that your knees were way out in front of your toes on that squat, and that's why your patella tendon's lit up like that. Let's do these 3 things. And, oh, by the way, you're box squatting every day now. You know, anytime we're doing back squats, you're box squatting until this problem goes away. And that comes with experience, right? Like, that's just something that I know from watching videos and doing all that. But that, like, I don't know. I feel like if you were to start busting out into FMS stuff kind of in the middle of a CrossFit setting, like maybe if it was a one-on-one client, yeah, I would use it. But like just that setting isn't really conducive for it. It's just better to use what they're already doing with a PVC pipe at the beginning of a class as analysis for how to fix their movement.
Well, that's something else that's a bit of an art form for a coach, right? Where we talked earlier about how do you make the group setting feel almost like an individual setting in terms of just recognizing folks' names and whatnot. But, you know, also there is a time where you have to change the movement, right? But you still want them to feel like part of the group, right? So in a way that's a skill in itself. So how do you change the movement, keep folks safe, and scale or progress them and keep them included in the class and not make them feel like they're wearing the dunce cap, right?
Yeah, man. So I have a big thing with always trying to sell people on one, you know, we have this issue. It's cool. We're going to get it better, but we're about to get out. You're getting a custom workout right now, and it is going to be harder, doing more work than anybody else is doing in here. You're going to leave getting more out of this from this class than all the other people who are doing, you know, kind of half-ass overhead squats today, because you can't get in that position. You can't overhead squat. Other work with you instead. That's going to just be brutal, you know, and that's so much what they want in a CrossFit setting. Like they want to leave with that feeling. I think Ben Benson talked about that. That's that dopamine rush that they get from, you know, working out for 15 minutes at high intensity. And I think that kind of personal selling it to people, coupled with the fact that you're letting them know, like, hey, this is going to make it better and I'm going to help you in the long run, kind of takes that dunce cap off, and they're like, all right, cool, like I'm a special guy. I'm not the dunce, I'm the special kid over here, but it's fucking cool to be the special kid over here, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing that I've noticed, it seems like really good coaches use a good mixture of both verbal cueing and tactile cueing. You know, like, and I think the other thing is you have to understand who that person is and what they respond best to. So, what's your style? Are you more of the verbal kind of cuer, or are you more, hey, I'm going to go kind of push you into where I want you to go so you can feel the position I'm trying to describe?
I am going to do whatever it takes to get the person to where I want them to be, is kind of my, like, you always go with the verbal cue first, because that's easy and best probably for group management. And you can fix a lot of problems with one cue, right?
Yeah.
Hey, knees out, and 5 other people think, oh shit, my knees aren't out. I better push them out a little bit. But if that doesn't work, like, I either over there showing them, demoing it to them, or, you know, if we're inside of a Metcon and it's getting ugly, I'm going to physically move them to where I want to go. To me, there's nothing. It just depends. There's no recipe for it, right? Like, you use everything you got until that thing is fixed, you know? And you'll hear, like, my favorite coach ever is Dave Lipson. He's a CrossFit coach. He's Camille LeBlanc-Bazinet's wife. And he is just, as far as CrossFit coaches go, he is a fucking master at it, and it's awesome to watch. And that's something that I kind of stole from him, is like, dude, I mean, you're just here to be relentless as a CrossFit coach all day. Like, until that thing is fixed, like, you're not stopping with that person, you know? There's no excuse to let somebody walk out of your door without, you know, thinking about that every single time that they're doing whatever that was. So,
do you get backlash maybe from, because again, CrossFit, we're tied a little bit to the score and the time and the board and what you're going to put on the whiteboard after. But when you actually have to pause them mid-Metcon or mid-scoring opportunity, I guess, how do you fight back or push back, or how do you handle the backlash from the athlete or client in that sense? Or I guess at any time if you get a little pushback from the client, what's your go-to to deal with that?
I have, especially at CrossFit Decatur, I've been around for a while, so everybody kind of knows my opinion of the whiteboard, and we use Wodify, which is really cool for the community, but I fucking hate it, man. Like, I think, like, and people know that. So, like, if I'm stopping you inside of a workout to fix your movement, like, I generally let them know, like, hey, look, I'm doing you a favor right now. Like, you are going to be not hurt. You're going to be fucked up for life if you don't fix what you need to fix right now. So don't give me any backlash. Don't worry about your fucking time, because your time's doesn't matter, because you're not doing what you should be doing anyway. Like, don't tell me, oh man, my fucking time would have been 30 seconds faster if you came over there and, you know, fixed my shitty lumbar spine position on my front squat. Like, no, dude, you weren't doing a front squat before. Like, you were doing a really shitty front squat before that shouldn't have counted anyway. So if you want to get involved with your score, let's go back, turn the clock off, do the whole workout over again. You just do all of the front squats right this time. Now, that's just kind of I guess that's been my attitude since the get-go with it, is like, it's do everything the right way first and then worry about everything else after that. You know, once you get to the point where, like, you can fucking do 21-15-9 thrusters and by the 9 round it doesn't look like dog shit, then we're ready to start writing down your score. Then we're ready to start worrying about it.
Hey gang, Coach Joe here to talk to you a little bit about Shoe Q. If you haven't listened to the show before, guys, you know I'm a weightlifter. I don't always run, but when I do, I run with my Shoe Qs in. Guys, Shoe Q, it's an insole with a heel plate built in. The heel plate has some ribs.
Rib for her pleasure. Ew.
And those ribs help turn the nerves in your feet back on and restore that feeling in your foot, so you know when you're on your heels and what to do to get off of them quickly. The rib plate also encourages a midfoot strike, which properly utilizes and helps to rebuild the arch in your foot. And I'll tell you from personal experience, I don't always run. I do a lot more weightlifting, but I weightlift in my Shoe Q insoles, because if you follow, I do a lot of heels off pulling. And why am I doing my heels off pulling? Because I'm trying to promote more midfoot activation when I'm breaking that barbell off the floor. I'm trying to be athletic. Guys, if you know anything about foot anatomy, all the goodies are in the front of the foot by the toesies, and in the back is just that fat pad. So wake up that fat pad, get off your fat pad, and figure out how to use that foot by using your Shoe Q today. And while you're there, guys, head over to shoeq.com to learn more. Brian McKenzie with a great video. Also, guys, check out @ShoeQ on Instagram. And if you get fired enough to purchase the product, which you should, use discount code JOCK10, Jock10, to get 10% off your Shoe Q today. Let them know that Doc and Jock sent you. Let them know that Coach Joe said you can do more than just run in this Shoe Q. And guys, I'm telling you, I use it personally. Love the product, and I think you will too. Cheers and best wishes for your midfoot happiness, guys. Take care.
Well, you have an older population at your gym too. So, what kind of tips can you give somebody in an older population? By old, they're not old, but older for a CrossFit gym for sure. So, what are some things you really have to be aware of and focus on with that population versus the gym that you originally had, which was much younger?
I think a big thing is understanding that you have to create an environment where you can't care about the weight as much, right? If you're dealing with somebody that's 49 years old, as much as they want to keep up with what the 31-year-olds, you have to get that ego in check first and let them know, like, dude, you're already on the precipice of, like, where things don't heal right anymore, and it's going to be, 10 years of bad lower back pain that's going to make it so you can't pick up your grandkids. Like, that's not awesome, So I think that's a big thing, is kind of managing, like, the middle-aged ego, I like to call it, I guess, which is, dude, stop competing with young kids and just worry about staying safe, staying healthy, and being able to do this for longer. Number two is just prioritizing movement even more so with them, because doing bad repetitions, they have, let's take a knee joint that's got years of meniscus wear on it as is, like, doing bad repetitions of high volume squatting at that age is going to wear the meniscus out sooner. The problem is going to hurt worse. It's going to not heal as quick. All those things. So I think that prioritizing good movement is probably number 2 for me. And number 3 is going, which is take the emphasis off the time, off the intensity, and make it more just put the emphasis on living better. And I think to go back and say this, I think the best seminar that I've been to in a long time is Brian McKenzie's breathing camp, which I went to with Danny.
Yeah.
But that's something that he talks about a lot nowadays, and Ben Benson, a lot of other guys. Like, dude, you want to be able to come to the gym every single day until you're dead, not be able to come to the gym once a week because your knee hurts so fucking bad that that's the only time you can do it. So I guess those are the 3 things for me.
Well, and they all speak to kind of a conversation that's been ongoing on the show, is just knowing the difference between why you're doing your training. And that's the difference between, are you in your CrossFit program because you want to be a games athlete? Are you in the CrossFit program because you're trying to improve your quality of life? And I think that's a big difference, and I think it's a huge distinction. At your guys' gym, is that something that's important?
Yeah, and I think CrossFit Decatur is not producing games level athletes right now. Like, it's not. We don't have an emphasis on it. Less than. This is really funny. We had a dude drop in from a gym in Florida last week, and we were working on muscle ups. And I go, less than 10% of our population can do bar muscle ups. And he looked at me and goes, "Holy fuck! Like, you can't even get into my gym without doing a bar muscle up." And I was like, dude, like, it's just such a different vibe, like that isn't where the emphasis is at for us. So it's not hard. The hard thing is getting people in that think that is what CrossFit is. Like, hey, like, I'm going to end up in 3 years from now at the CrossFit Games if I do this, right? And you're like, no, man, like, we're trying to explain to you, like, this is how we stay fit for life, This is how we're trying to just look awesome naked, I guess, to steal the line that's been used on the show many times. And creating that culture so people aren't worried about that. And also mitigating the inner gym competition. We're talking about whiteboard before, and there's a lot of that goes on. For not being a competitive gym, there is still people that are very competitive with each other. Right. So just trying to keep that to a minimum and constantly downplay it and not be, I guess, letting people get inside the whiteboard and fucking, oh my God, so-and-so did that in 3 minutes faster than me. I got to redo it and all that shit. So, yeah, man, I think that's a big deal. Like, and I've been around, my gym in LA was, people wanted to compete. There were people that were competing. There's people that have been to regionals from the gym. Like, that to me is a much harder situation where you have that mixed group setting where you're like, hey man, actually, you know what? You're not going to be in the competitive track. Like, you're going to only track. And that just crushes people, like, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. I think Kelly tweeted something really funny today. It was just a picture of some guy that looked kind of like lonely and upset, and it said something about, like, just came to the realization you're not going to be a competitive CrossFit athlete or something like that. And I just started laughing because, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, man. I mean, and not only that, but the competition is becoming so much more difficult now. Even I hear people all the time, they're like, yeah, just wait till, I'm master's age. I'm like, well, there's a lot of other people out there saying that are a hell of a lot more fit than you are. So you're not the only one getting older. And and you're right. It's the best and worst part of a CrossFit gym. The competition is what pushes people further, to actually, like, try harder, higher intensity levels, get fit, faster, and make these fast changes. But it's also what drives people to really bad positions and not maybe take a couple seconds to gather themselves before they do that last, deadlift or whatever it might be, and then they end up in my office.
Yep. I sent a lot of people to Danny's office. Maybe that means people just like me a lot. They're lying to me about my coaching.
Yeah, maybe so. We'll see.
No, I think it's cool. I want to go back to this. You talked about the vibes in different gyms, and it's okay to have different vibes, right? So, yeah, so how might, to kind of sum up maybe all of this, and maybe to sum this up for like a CrossFit gym in general, the gym owner, the coach, what are some, besides big weights and low scores and workouts, what are the real indicators of the success of a gym in your mind?
I mean, movement quality, and then this is super bodybuilder, but like, does your population look fit generally? Like, when you walk in there, are you like, man, everybody in this place looks generally healthy. They look like they move well. They take care of themselves. When we say, hey, it's time to run, there's not, 70% of the group that has some sort of injury where everybody can't go outside and just jog, Those are kind of things for me that are indicators that you're doing a good job, And the other thing is that the people there are happy. Like, if you have a crowded gym and everybody in there is happy and having a good time, regardless of the whiteboard and the load that they're lifting and all that other stuff, then you're doing a good job. Like, it's pretty black and white. Like, if you have a bunch of unhappy people, a bunch of drama, and that sort of stuff, I think that you probably have lost focus on what it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does happen. It's a shame, but that's what happens when you're around people as much as you are, right? I mean, a couple hundred people, they see each other frequently during the week, and then they start arguing about what they want to listen to on the radio, or somebody leaves chalk somewhere, and then now it's like family, right? And so it just happens. But no, this has been a cool conversation. We appreciate, number one, first of all, the fact that we're finally able to get you on the podcast and talk CrossFit a little bit, because it's one thing we don't really delve into too much, but it's definitely something that we, Joe and I have a strong background in, and to this day still do.
I want to reverse the tables on you guys for a second. Yeah. So. And maybe we have to edit this part out, so I'll say that to myself.
You don't have to edit. You're the guy that does that. You do what you want.
Yeah. So what are you guys' opinions? So this is me lately, morally, been battling a little bit, like, what is my opinion of CrossFit, right? Like, I love the training mythology. I came up in it. It saved my life, for lack of better terms. Like, I was not able to walk up 5 flights of stairs in New York City because I smoked so many cigarettes pre-CrossFit. And now, fast forward 5-6 years later, I'm a totally different person. But the emphasis on the games and, like, listening to the rhetoric around it this year, like, and what people are talking about, it's a sport, right? Like, people are like, dude, this is a fucking sport, and we're going to treat it like it's a sport. And there's dudes like me who are like, no offense, Joe, but I don't know if it was ever a sport anyway. I felt like this is what you did to get better at sports. And it's always just kind of tripped me out a little bit. What's you guys' take on that? Like, are you fired up for it being a sport? Do you think it's a little crazy that it's a sport? Are you not allowed to talk about it because of your relationships with CrossFit? Like,
well, no, we say whatever we want.
Well, I'll go. So I think that's, again, we've had the conversation. I think it's just clear you have to know why you're doing it. And what I don't like about the competitive side of CrossFit is that you'll see a lot of folks go into the gym, again, with a goal, a general fitness goal, a general I want to be happy goal, and I want to lose weight. But then all of a sudden, the competitive side of it can take over that, and they forget it, and then all of a sudden work their way into an injury. And I've just seen it too often where people misalign with their goals because they get, for better or worse, the peer pressure of CrossFit, the competitive side of CrossFit, the community side of CrossFit can push people into unhealthy situations, right? So my opinion of CrossFit is that for one, anybody has the right to try to compete, right? So, but until you're putting in the time outside of the gym to really compete, then you can't be taken seriously as a competitor, right? And that's to say, like, again, we've talked about a chick like Emily Bridgers, right? She, outside of just the training, she's eating right, she's sleeping right, and she's making the life choices to put herself in that position to compete. Well, a lot of folks just want to do it because they think it's cool. So then all of a sudden, they're not taking care of business away from the gym, and then they're going to get banged up. So CrossFit, the original intent as a strength and conditioning program, or the intent as a training tool to maybe just improve your life, I think can be done really smart. But with that said, you have to back off the intensity a little bit. So I like CrossFit. I mean, I'll do CrossFit here 2 to 3 times a week. But to me, my CrossFit supports my weightlifting and supports my life. And I think I said it to you, Danny, recently, that my livelihood, whether that's supporting the kiddos and lifting weights right now, if I can't do that because of a CrossFit workout, well, then I didn't successfully implement CrossFit, right? Yeah. So that's where I'm at now. So.
Well, I think that there is a natural transition that has occurred between the sport side of things and the general fitness, like general prepared fitness kind of side, right? So, no, I think it's, in my opinion, I don't know if they put it together in a way that they thought, hey, this is going to turn into a big sport, and now there's money behind it. And anytime there's money behind something, people are they're gonna jump on board. Not only that, but you get a lot of people that used to be, athletes, whether it be collegiately or professionally or whatever, and now all of a sudden they can jump back into that realm of being a professional athlete. And it's very, I could see it's very enticing. Now, the general population, you have to understand that is a very small percentage of people. And what I see, and this is what Brian, I think one of the reasons that Brian's podcast with us resonated with so many people was the fact that what's happened, and what I see with people that get really into CrossFit, is they're there 6 times a week, 2 hours a day, and that is what they become fascinated with, whether good or bad, right? I mean, they're addicted to it, but and they're addicted to something that's beneficial for them. It's better than other things. But what you forget to do is utilize that fitness outside of the gym. And
that's right.
And not only that, but there's so many other variables that are not trained in a CrossFit gym. That's a very sagittal plane sport. A very sagittal plane methodology of training, meaning I lift this barbell up to my chest, I push this barbell over my head, I grab this bar, I pull myself up to it. I do this kettlebell swing in front of me. Well, if you want to see somebody get screwed up, and not necessarily hurt, but I mean, they're just like motor idiots all of a sudden, have them do like a 5-10-5 drill. Just have them do some lateral movement and stop and change direction, or get them in something that involves like bouncing a ball and then shooting it. Like I watched the most pathetic game of a pickup game when I taught at CrossFit Reebok 1 up in Boston, and there were 4 guys, and they were all like really fit, and they all looked like they were dribbled a ball like a 4th grader, that had just started playing basketball, and there's no fluidity in their movements, but they could do a hell of a lot of thrusters and pull-ups, right? So I guess it depends on what your goal is, because if you're going to train the whole human, the whole body, it's not just sagittal plane. It's not just get strong in those positions. Sure, you can look really good that way, but what happens when you do have to move? What happens when you have to, rotate fast and turn and chase your dog down or something like that that's trying to run away or run across the street? I'm not sure if maybe there's some missing elements. So in my opinion, I think that, it's cool to see that it's a sport. It's like strongman stuff. I'll watch it all day long, man. I'll watch strongmen pick up big-ass stones that I can't pick up and put it on stuff. But are you in that group? Probably not. I mean, if you're listening to this, chances are you're not. If you are, then it's rare. You're not one of those people. So I think you have to kind of keep in mind what your goals are, and not get lost in the idea of, oh, I'm going to make it to the games. Unless you have the time and you have the skill, then it's probably not going to happen. And you don't want to sacrifice other things in your life because you want to hang out at the CrossFit gym only and not ever do anything outside of it.
Yeah, and I think that it's aligning with your intentions, evaluating your goals, and being honest with yourself. I think it's just a big part of that puzzle.
Right.
But it's a good conversation. It's interesting. I know this year with the games, I will say I get a little sad watching regionals in the games, not being able to do that anymore. Or not being a part of a team that's part of that anymore, because that is fun. You know what I mean? I'll say, like, there's lots of things about playing football, and there's lots of things about doing that. Like, I'll tell you, 2 of the most cool moments of my entire life. One of them was I was playing in a college football game, and it's just ear-holing somebody, right, and putting them on their ass. Because, one, you can't do that in public anywhere, and it's just something that most men can't do. But when you, like, dominate another man and you stand over him and you're like, next play, that's the greatest feeling that I'll never feel again. It just won't happen. Unless I really feel like going to jail over it. And then the other one, I'll say, at 2012 regionals, I PR'd my snatch during that snatch ladder, and I did hit a 10-pound PR, and I walked off, and I told CJ Martin, I was like, that was better than watching Mason be born, and I meant it. Like, I was fired up. Like, it was just when you're competing, and it's a different kind of fired up. When you got thousands of people around you and you do something cool and they cheer for you, that's again something that you're not going to. And people kind of chase that. I guess you hear people talk about who are maybe addicts, right? If you're chasing the first high, you probably have some addictive addict kind of tendencies, but then you're recreational users who are just kind of doing it for its fun. So I guess you got to find out really early, and maybe you as a coach, you have to be able to recognize, are you dealing with a recreational CrossFitter, or are you dealing with these kind of CrossFit junkies or these addicts? Because those are the guys who kind of get hurt, right? So interesting stuff, man. Cool stuff. CrossFit's cool. Moving the barbell's cool. I think this was a pretty cool chat with maybe 2.5 cool guys, and I don't know. Between the three of us, we can probably claim at least.
Who's the half?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Who knows?
We should play a game sometime. Who's weaker, Johnny or Danny?
Who's
what?
Who's weaker, Johnny or Danny?
I tell you what.
Dude. Our clients give me shit all the time because I will fucking smoke you in so many goddamn workouts. But, like, you ask me to snatch 1.5 times my body weight, like, the bar doesn't even move, you know? Like, it's just, it's embarrassing.
1.5 times. Dan, it was a great day for me when I hit body weight. You know, I was ecstatic whenever that happened.
Yeah, but
so I think you win.
Shaking his head right now, embarrassed at both.
No, I'm not embarrassed for you. I'm happy but I was actually thinking, on that same note, if I was forced to do much on a treadmill or run with any bit of intensity, that would be interesting too. But upward and onward, I guess, in that regard. If I had to do 300 air squats, that would be pretty piddly. I really would just give up. I would just probably be like, I'm good. Why? What are we doing here?
True.
That's just not something I'm into.
You know, we also, I think, Johnny, the other thing is, I'm going to stick up for us right now because If you took the general population and you asked them to snatch their body weight and actually do it without wrecking their body, I mean, I can do it, and I can do it, and then walk away, and I feel just fine.
There you go.
No problem. You know, like it's not an issue. I'm not going to wake up the next morning and have a dislocated, you know, like lumbar vertebrae like sticking out. But the gross majority of the population, they can't do that. A lot of CrossFitters cannot do that. I mean, if they can, it looks like dog crap. And so, I will say this about you: you move really, really well, and in my opinion, that means more to me than anything because it's about longevity, it's about how you feel, and it's about fluidity of movement. And so, you know, this like stuff like that is annoying to me sometimes whenever you see that, because if we took a gym of 400 people and got them on a basketball court and just see who looks athletic, who looks like they actually can bounce a ball and shoot it and pass or run and change direction and jump and have some coordination to them, it's who knows what it'll look like, no matter what they can snatch or whatever they can do in the gym, because, you're good at exercising, but real sports that people actually get paid a lot of money to do, what do you look like when you do those things? And in my opinion, if you can't do that as well, you're good at exercising, you're not an athlete.
Yeah, it's a deficiency too. And I'll throw you guys a bone. If you really want to watch me get my ass kicked, just bring a pool. Bring a pool.
A pool? Oh yeah, I've seen Joe swim. Poor Joe. Poor Joe. No, dude, the Joe finishing that sprint triathlon is like the funniest story. What was it? It was like 800 meters. It wasn't that far. It was
a 500-meter swim.
Was it that short?
That was it. Oh, dude.
Yeah, I think maybe 500, 750. It was somewhere in between there.
I thought it was closer to, but whatever it was. Yeah, you cut it up into chunks of about 100 meters and grabbed onto different lifeguards and logs and sticks sticking out of the water, all kinds of stuff.
Rummaged through the hydrilla, and I sat in the transition zone for 13 minutes. I was dejected. It was bad.
It's so funny to hear. Ashley watched the whole thing. My wife is sitting there watching the whole thing, and she said, I didn't think Joe was going to get on the bike because he sat there when he got out of the water with his head down, but staring down at the ground like he had just been through a serious trauma event. And it
was traumatic. I almost drowned.
Johnny, I'll tell you this. I was at a pool. Last weekend that had 12 feet. It was a 12-foot deep end, and there was nobody there. So I got in the deep end, and I put my hands behind my back and my feet together, and I started doing this ground. Yeah, I was bobbing, and that's really hard. After about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 of them, I was starting to I didn't feel like I was running out of air, but I started to get tired, like fatigued.
Right, it's fucked up, right? Like it's like you look at that, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. But exactly, you get 3 or 4 done, and you're like, dude, I'm fucked. Like I can't push off the bottom of the pool to get to the top anymore. Like, and you know you're gonna pass out at a certain point. You're like, there's gonna be a day where I can't do this anymore, and I'm just gonna fucking black out in the water. And that's the scariest fucking thing in the entire world. Is like I'm gonna black out in the goddamn water, and like. Whatever.
No, I don't want to do
it's
that.
Coming, you know?
Well, the lifeguard was this very small high school girl, and I was afraid that she wouldn't be able to pull me out. So I think I did like 6 or 8, and then I would take a break, and I'd go to the side, and I'd do it again. But I was surprised, man. Like pushing off the ground, you got to push pretty hard to get back, to get back up.
If you ever want to do it, I'll tie your hands and feet up.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm interested in that side of things.
Dude, I will get you out of that water.
Oh, I bet you will. I trust you. They'll do that.
So you just jump in and touch the bottom and come up with your hands behind your back?
Yeah, so you put your hands behind your back, feet together. You're supposed to have them tied, and you hold your breath. You have to let a lot of the air out to actually like sink down to the bottom, and then from the bottom you basically do like a squat and jump up and push yourself out to the top, and then you take a breath and then you sink again, and you just do it repeatedly. I don't know how many times you're supposed to do it, but I did it like 6 or 8 times.
An hour. Just try it for an hour sometime.
Yeah, no. I didn't do it for. I did it for like 2 minutes. I guess it was maybe even. I don't even probably even that long. An hour? Oh, no way.
I don't ever want to try that for 1 minute, one time. I'm good. I'm over
4 foot in.
Interesting. I think that's kind of the stuff that they're talking about that Laird Hamilton's doing with the barbells, and I think this sounds like some torture training that was. Sounds like some Navy SEAL torture chamber kind of, survival tactic stuff. I'm not,
This is what Doug was telling us about, Doug Kachijian, about drown proofing.
Yeah, my life's hard enough, changing diapers and, trying to keep my wife happy. That's hard enough. I don't need
that is way harder than anything I've ever done in my entire life.
It's harder than drown proofing.
That is way harder than drown proofing. It's fucking way harder than buddy breathing. Anything else in the entire world. Yeah.
I have limited bandwidth for self torture. Committing to this raising of kids things is self torture enough. I guess. When they're out of school, when they're all out of high school, Johnny, we'll link back up and I'll let you drown proof me. Okay, let me parent proof myself and kid proof myself.
That's great.
Fired up, gang.
Well, cool. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us at Doc and Jock Podcast. It was great to have Johnny on. Shoot us a question if you got something for Johnny. If you want to know why the podcast sounds better, he is why. If you want to know why the logo looks better, he's also why. He's been helping us a ton on the back end, so we owe him a big thank you for doing that. And we're glad to talk CrossFit with him because this is a cool cool topic.
Well, and if you've downloaded the 7-day mobility overhaul,
yeah, he did that too.
Johnny put that PDF together and look awesome. And if you haven't, you need to do it because we know Johnny's incorporated in his classes over at CrossFit Decatur. We know lots of folks are having some good results with it. And if you guys are just kind of drawing at straws, figuring out, well, what mobility should I do this week for this day? That overhaul does it for you. So check that thing out, guys. All it costs is a little bit of time and maybe your email address. So head over there and do that, guys. And we appreciate your listenership, gang. Or Johnny, you know the tagline, don't you? You want to finish
I sure
this off? Do. You want to do the end? You want to do the beginning? You want to start it off? Can we do a 3-way? How can we do the 3-way?
Oh man, you're getting some weird. You said some weird stuff tonight, Joe.
Well, it's always weird.
It is. You do. That's true.
I want weird. My life's too standardized, so I chase the weird where I can get it. Whether it's awkward relationships with older men, young women, whatever it is, as long as it doesn't go too weird, we just got to make it interesting. That's all it is. But, Doc and Jock podcast proving, guys, that if you have a body,
you're an athlete.
What's up, guys? Doc Danny here with the Doc and Jock podcast. And when you get a chance, head over to mobilitywod.com. You can get 2 free months of programming and subscription to Mobility Wod Pro by using the code Doc and Jock when you sign up for a yearly subscription. This is a pretty cool service. They've got daily mobility wads that are programmed. They have case studies where they look at specific issues like, hey, maybe why you're having shoulder pain and how to deal with that. They even have webinars in specific areas like the lower back or the ankle. This is a super helpful resource for yourself if you're an athlete, or if you're a coach, you can't go wrong with this. Save 2 months, use the code DOC and JOCK, no spaces, and enjoy the information.